that appointment where you hear the news no one wants to hear, that you have cancer, I have probably blanked that appointment quite significantly out of my head. And the only things I remember is being told that it's fully treatable and fully curable. So I remember hearing that and thinking I'm going to be okay. And I believed I was going to be okay. I really did. And I remember seeing the color drain from my husband's face and my focus becoming on him a little bit, because I didn't want him to faint.
Was he in the room with you?
He was allowed, and I suppose I should have probably realized at that point something was about to happen, because he was allowed in that appointment, whereby he hadn't been allowed into the hospital for anything else. But when I got the call for that appointment, they said, you're allowed to bring someone with you. But yeah, I'd forgotten that, actually. I'd actually forgotten that I was given that permission to have him there. But, I think that's how trauma works. You erase these memories from your brain that are just too painful. And then with the processing, which I have done loads of processing since, I'm rekindling these memories and remembering them, and then you can put them in order and start to make sense of it. But yeah, it was, basically bloody scary.
You said something earlier that your sort of take was not why me, but what now, or what can I do? Was that before you were diagnosed with cancer, or was that after?
That was after.
So you kind of come up with that after, but initially you're just like, ugh.
Yeah, like, initially
life must almost stop for a second.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And interestingly, initially I wanted an answer of why, not why me, because it was very much not why me and not someone else. It wasn't that. It was why me? What have I done wrong? So I was kind of convinced it was because I had drunk too much at university, or, I'd eaten too much steak, or I was vegan for a bit. And I remember someone telling me not to eat too much soy at the time. So, these things were what was coming into my head at the beginning. And it was my oncologist and my breast surgeon that sat down and said to me scientifically, it is none of those things. It's kind of a combination of genetics and bad luck. And you read, there's lots of stuff, especially social media, which cannot be very helpful when people are saying, if you drink too much, you're going to get cancer. Well, obviously we know smoking. We know some of these things do lead to cancer, but also some of these things are fairly low down the chain of leading to cancer. And actually genetics and bad luck can't do anything about that. So that I found really helpful hearing that from a scientific person, because I've got a scientific brain that relies on empirical evidence. And as soon as I was told that, I was able to think, okay, that's what's happened. Now what are we going to do with it?
Based on your personal experience of it and those things that you were saying there, the sort of the why me, I could have done this different, I could have done that different, and also combining what you've learned from others, do you think that initial reaction is okay, is quite normal?
Yeah, 100%. I don't think we can control our initial reactions really to something so like earth shattering. You hear something like that. However much you try and control your emotion, you just got to go. I think you just got to go with what you're given, and then you've got to work on it afterwards. To be honest,
it's interesting, isn't it? Excuse me, because a lot of people that you kind of speak to is like, oh, we adopt the victim mindset straight away, which if we were to bring all of those sort of feelings together and try and label it to put it out there to the world, that would be a victim mindset. And it's exactly what I went through with my crash. I was like, why me? Why I was in that situation? All of those things. But the more I've dug into it, it's like, I think if you're not having those feelings, there's something wrong with you. Like,
yeah.
When shit really hits the fan, no matter what shit it is and what fan it's hitting, however it is, like if you're not feeling a little bit like, why did this happen to me as your initial reaction, then you're probably you probably don't have many feelings.
Yeah, I agree. It just wouldn't be a normal reaction, would it? But what I'm so interested with is the people that are able to get out of the victim mindset versus the people that aren't. And, you know, when I looked into it, I think I read that I think it's 12 of the first 44 US presidents lost a parent. I think it was before they were 15. So, you know, one of their parents died. And it's just fascinating how out of that kind of utter despair and grief can come this indomitable force to push people to become, you know, amazing. And to push people to become like, you know, the US president, basically. Because yeah, you go through something like that and you can just shatter, can't you? You can give up. But then you've got that percentage of people that are just somehow able to use that to grow. And that's the bit I'm so fascinated with.
And that's really the start of what you said there, self-discovery. But I think, I don't know, in that moment and in maybe the days afterwards, like we don't walk out, like we can have our moment and go like, why me, and get a bit upset, but we don't walk out and go to the self-help section of Amazon and start ordering books immediately, do we? So I'm interested to see how your self-discovery journey, like, can you remember any of the timelines of it and when it got maybe harder, maybe got easier, maybe when you realized that those words of the surgeon was like, you're okay. We can cure this. It's going to be cool. You know, do you remember some prevalent points of that self-discovery?
Yeah, I think what I remember is whilst I was I started treatment very quickly. I was very fortunate that I started it probably within weeks. And I remember very much, I think consciously saying to myself, right, game face on, let's do it. So kind of using battle mode, fight mode. I know a lot of cancer survivors hate the analogies of battles and fights. And I have had discussions with other cancer survivors about this. But for me, at that point, it was a battle. It was a battle. And I put, you know, my game face on and I just went out. And I definitely was not doing any self-discovery at that early point because it was all just focused into day to day. Cancer is like a full-time job. You go from one appointment to another appointment, to a scan, to another appointment, to blood test, to treatment. You have no time to self-discover. You know, like I would lie in bed and just watch rubbish TV, which I hadn't done for years. And I haven't really done since. But so I was not doing self-discovery at that point. And I think the self-discovery probably started after I had my chemo and then I had my big surgery. And the rehab for the big surgery, I then started to go for daily walks. And it was on those daily walks that I started to really kind of tap into the podcast I was listening to. And, you know, talking about daily walks, exercise for me was so pivotal in my recovery as well. So pivotal in my mental recovery as well as my physical recovery, because it was just being able to take control of something. Because when you're going through something like that, everything is out of your control. And the one thing I could control was if I was able to exercise or not and what I was able to do. So exercise, I've always loved exercise, but at that point, I mean, I say that exercise really did save my life.
That's quite amazing. I should have this function to rewind and replay what you just said there, Emma. Sometimes, but I'll sort of try and I'll probably screw it up, but I'll try and phrase it. A lot of the time, life takes things out of your control. The one thing that you could control was getting up and going for a walk. And that brought you probably insane, both physical and mental energy. That's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, you know, and that is the phrase control the controllables, isn't it?
Yeah.
But with exercise as well, you know, we know that you get release of endorphins with it. So we know there's a physical response as well as just the mental response of being outside. You know, when you're stuck in a hospital as well, or you're stuck in a chemo ward and there's no windows, and when you can go outside and you can hear the birds and, you know, hear nature and feel the sun in your face, there's a real kind of like mental positiveness to it.